Hello, my name is Thane and I like to experiment with AI art. I have been doing some more experimentation with Midjourney version 5. And in this video I have 25 more words that change your prompt. Some more than others. It took some more experimentation as I have been getting to know what this alpha version does. So now I know a little bit more what version 5 tends to do now. That is why I have carefully selected the words to showcase in this video. I ran a lot of prompts and whatever I didn't include in this video, I added to my wiki. The link to all of them and everything else I have tested out and will test out can be found in the description field below. But let's get to the words. So just like in the previous video, I have prompted each word by itself and also in combination with one other word. I wanted to select a wide variety of different subjects, because the prompt words may affect different subjects in various ways. In nature department I selected landscape, wildlife and macro. These are the images that were generated with those words only. --seed 777 to make the comparison a little less random. And all of them with the aspect ratio of 9:16. The second set of images was architecture related. The words that I selected were city, interior, and architecture. And the third set of words were portrait, fantasy and sci-fi. I really like fantasy and sci-fi myself and I love the images and the imaginary worlds that are generated when referencing those subjects. And portrait is kind of mandatory. So first let's take a look at the visual representations of Supple and how it can be captured in graceful movements and fluid shapes. Supple. Meaning, flexible and graceful in movement, often due to physical conditioning or training. On its own this word doesn't really produce that interesting images. Lots of text and randomness. For nature images, the change is only slightly noticeable. The rolling landscapes are quite nice. And the animals are mostly in odd postures. Architecture images have some nice wavy elements to them. And I really like the interior images. My favorites for this word can again be found in combination with fantasy. The movement and the poses are so beautiful. Sci-fi images are not that bad either, they are quite different from the default. Next up, we'll explore the vibrant and lively world of vivaciousness, featuring bright colors, energetic movements, and infectious smiles. Vivacious. Meaning, lively and full of energy, often characterized by an outgoing personality. Just this word alone generates very colorful images. Mostly flowers and cafes. But very happy images. Nature images seem to also continue that theme. There's a few very colorful paintings in landscapes, somewhat happy-looking animals and very colorful flower close-ups. Even the architecture-related images are really colorful. I guess that is what this word brings in, very happy colors. And apparently very happy people. I am not that happy with the fantasy and sci-fi images this time. There's lots of text and card layouts and poster layouts. So I wanted to see what happens if negative prompts are used. Here are the same prompts with a couple of negative prompts. I used --no text, mockup for both of these. And I really like what came out. Although they might just look whatever Midjourney's current default style looks like for fantasy and sci-fi. Just a lot more colorful. Now we delve into the visuals of querulousness, showcasing the power of speaking up. Querulous. Meaning, complaining or grumbling often in a persistent or annoying way. To be honest, Midjourney probably doesn't recognize this word's meaning at all. I do like the color schemes and the graphics on the images even though they have nonsense text on them. Nature images seem to look a lot nicer with this combination. They do look quite like the default photographic style. but there is a hint of different color scheme. For architecture-related images, we also have a slightly brown color scheme again. Although this word doesn't really do much for architecture, I guess. I do again like the graphics of the fantasy and sci-fi, even with the text on them. So they, along with the nature images, are the only reason I wanted to showcase this word in this video. I do feel like they have ever so slightly different look I've seen so far with fantasy and sci-fi images. Words can be beautiful, powerful, and awe-inspiring. Let's now explore the visual representations of eloquence and how language can be captured in stunning imagery. Eloquent. Meaning: fluent and persuasive in speech or writing, often characterized by a command of language and a polished delivery. Another word that produces a lot of text on images. But it does come up with suited men and luxurious-looking things. Not exactly what the word means. Some of the animals in nature images seem to be speaking eloquently. And from architecture-related images, I get the feeling that Midjourney thinks this word means something elegant. It does sound similar enough. The final 3 themes seem to be kind of confirming that. Lots of text again in fantasy and sci-fi images. But this time I only prompted fantasy again and loved the results. From fireworks to dance parties, jubilation is all about joy and celebration. Jubilant. Meaning: full of joy and celebration, often characterized by exuberance and enthusiasm. So this seems to be conveying very happy and celebrating people. Often in soccer-related situations, it seems. Even the animals are roaring with celebration. Architecture-related themes don't really convey the meaning of this word. I guess it is more emotion-based that is hard to translate to themes that usually don't depict people. Happy people and poses again in portraits, fantasy and sci-fi. And adding some negative prompts, the look is very different in my opinion. The colors are different from the usual. Not everything in life is sunshine and rainbows. Let's now take a look at the darker side of humanity as we explore the visuals of abhorrence. Abhorrent. Meaning: repulsive or detestable, often due to a moral objection or aversion. This is clearly very metal. We get either metal band album covers or metal band photographs. Even the nature images have a darker coloration to them and more desolation. Architecture-related images also get kind of an abandoned and apocalyptic vibe to them. The dark themes continue onto portraits, fantasy and sci-fi. I like the fantasy ones, especially with the fantastical monsters. What does it mean to be invincible? Next up, we explore the visual representations of invincibility, showcasing the power and strength of the unstoppable. Invincible. Meaning: impossible to defeat or overcome, often due to superior strength or ability. This one seems to get inspiration from superheroes and comic books. It doesn't really translate to nature images. Although the wildlife is kind of fierce looking. City does get some hints of superheroes, but interior and architecture do their own thing. And the last themes go totally superhero. I really like the sci-fi ones, they're so nice just on their own. And as fantasy had some text on it, I went and added some negative prompts. This is just fantastic, there's so much going on and there is a distinct style going on here. From twisted minds to sinister plots, Diabolical is all about the darker side of human nature. Diabolical. Meaning: evil or wicked, often characterized by a desire to cause harm or suffering. The color scheme is very red, black and orange with a hint of fire. And devils. The color scheme seems to go well with nature images too. The landscapes look like Mordor. The animals look very evil. And macro is doing close-ups of very red bugs. Possibly ants. The city images look great. they have some fantasy elements there with the winged gargoyle creatures. Architecture images are also sharp and pointy. The portraits have some devilish people. I really love the fantasy images, this just goes so well with that. With some negative prompts, the sci-fi images do get better. They look quite a lot like movie posters though. Some things in life are simply beyond our comprehension. Unfathomable. Meaning, difficult or impossible to understand, often due to complexity or mystery. This word seems to generate a lot of text and ocean themes. Water themes seem to continue in nature images. Landscapes look quite awesome, lots of water there. And all the wildlife animals are swimming too. Water themes continue in architecture-related images too. Interior images seem to have a harder time at that, so they look more like they have water damages. Portraits look different, they're painted. Fantasy and sci-fi also have some water themes in them. And with negative prompting, the sci-fi goes totally underwater. Sometimes, danger lurks in unexpected places, creeping in slowly and unnoticed. Insidious. Meaning, slowly and subtly harmful or destructive, often without being noticed. This word seems to generate very sinister-looking grannies mostly. Nature images seem to continue the dark themes. For landscapes we get some abandoned houses in the middle of nowhere. And the macro images are really insidious. All of the architecture-related images give me some horror movie vibes. And so do portraits, fantasy and sci-fi. Very scary grannies and ghostly stuff. From petty revenge to grand schemes of destruction, maliciousness can take many forms. Malicious. Meaning, intentionally harmful or cruel, often characterized by a desire to cause pain or suffering. This one has a totally different aesthetic. Similar to Diabolical, but more greens and graphics. Nature images are a little bit less evil looking than the ones we've seen earlier in this video. Cities and interiors I do get, the look matches with the word in my opinion. But I have no idea what has happened to architecture. A malicious flowchart? Fantasy and sci-fi again deliver some absolutely fantastic results. Really awesome creatures. Picture-perfect landscapes, serene settings, and moments of pure tranquility, that's the world of idyllic. Meaning, charmingly picturesque or peaceful, often associated with a simpler way of life and natural beauty. Some nice peaceful farmhouses on a clear summer day. And nature images look especially tranquil. Although it does kind of bother me that some deer look like they have 2 or 3 legs if you look closely. Architecture images are looking very European to me. But I'd love to live in a house like that, overgrown with ivy. Fantasy and sci-fi images also get some kind of calm, bright and perfect feeling to them. From the brilliance of the sun to the radiance of a smile, effulgence is all about brightness and light. Effulgent. Meaning, radiant and bright, often characterized by a dazzling or luminous quality. I guess Midjourney is again lost with this word. We get everything and some magic cards as Midjourney tries its hardest to guess what this means. But nature images are on the nicer side of the default style. I do like the design in the interiors and architecture images. The star of this word is fantasy. Sci-fi is pretty good too. But I like the fairies and pretty magical ladies. Colors that shimmer and change in the light, that's the world of iridescence. Iridescent. Meaning, displaying a range of colors that seem to shimmer or change in the light. Now this does pop out for sure. Mainly very colorful hair in the image series of just the word iridescent. But things get very nice already from the nature images. Landscape images are okay, odd colors. But the birds are fabulous. and so are the macro images. This time Midjourney really does know the meaning of the word. Very colorful choices come up in the architecture-related images as well. And the last three themes are concentrating on makeup. Even fantasy and sci-fi. I guess Iridescent really does go with futuristic clothing. Some things in life are constant and unchanging. Immutable. Meaning, unchanging or permanent, often due to a fundamental nature or principle. Again, a struggle for Midjourney based on the text and card layout. But I do like the style of the images. Nature images look different from usual too. Not all of them are photographs. But I guess it's hard for macro to deviate from photography. City and architecture are very chaotic and more drawn than not. Fantasy and sci-fi get more on the default side of things. The images are nice, but they are starting to repeat a bit at this point. From correcting mistakes to improving our work, emendation is all about progress and growth. Emend. Meaning, to correct or improve a text or document, often through revision or editing. Again, a word that goes to logistics, gear and machines. The macro images are looking nice and colorful. City images get a hint of futurism and sci-fi in them while architecture stays quite contemporary. But I do like the fantasy and sci-fi images again, even though they do seem to be in the default style again. Sometimes, we have to make guesses and predictions based on limited information. Conjecture. Meaning, an opinion or theory based on incomplete information or speculation. So this one brings in some geometry, lines and dots. And it is seen in the landscape images. For once, the macro images also look totally different. Architecture-related images have a lot of lines and crisscross going on in them, it seems. And the remaining themes also look quite different from what we've seen so far. Definitely not totally default, but a little bit still on the default side. From cruel insults to vicious attacks, vitriol can be a dangerous force in our lives. Vitriolic. Meaning, bitterly critical or sarcastic, often characterized by a sharp or caustic tone. And for some reason Midjourney gets wine bottles from that. I guess vitriolic sounds a little bit like wine. But there is definitely some kind of effect on the nature images. A bit more painterly than usual with the exception of macro. But we get some different colors here too. Architecture-related images are a little bit affected. Not totally in a way I would really like, but okay. The last images here do get some different stuff here compared to default, but not all of them go there. I do really love the fantasy images. Sometimes, we have to choose our words carefully in order to avoid conflict or misunderstanding. Equivocate. Meaning, to use ambiguous or evasive language, often to avoid taking a clear position or committing to a decision. But that doesn't mean anything, as Midjourney seems to go more equestrian with this. The horse theme is strong even with nature images. For landscapes we get fenced-off pastures of places where horses probably could be seen. Architecture-related images have one photobomb by a horse and some stable interiors along with some normal imagery. Portraits are of course horse portraits. I do love the fantasy horses. But I guess there are no horses in the imaginary future, because sci-fi prefers robots instead. From healing the sick to making the world a better place, amelioration is all about positive change. Ameliorate. Meaning, to improve or make better, often through gradual or incremental changes. And for Midjourney I guess it means essential oils and cremes. Nice color schemes in nature images though. I really like the macro images. Even though we've probably seen these water droplets a million times already. Architecture does get some nice designs too out of this. And the last 3 themes bring in some pretty ladies again. I do really again love the fantasy style. Sci-fi is nice too. From the depths of the ocean to the emptiness of space, abysses are places of mystery and wonder. Abyss, meaning a deep and seemingly bottomless chasm or void, often used metaphorically to describe a sense of emptiness or despair. And Midjourney does take us into very deep underwater caverns with this. Nature images are nice too, this time the animals are also swimming underwater. And macro is also doing something different. Underwater creatures perhaps? Cavernous and underwater themes seem to be continuing in the architecture-related images too. Very nice interiors here. And I like the layered floors in the architecture as well. Oh, the portraits already went full fantasy with this word, that's cool. For the first time I do actually really like what happened to portraits. Even though the fantasy and sci-fi images are also looking very cool. Sometimes, music can be a powerful force for mourning and reflection. Dirge, meaning a mournful or melancholy song or poem, often associated with death or sorrow. But I'm guessing Midjourney connected this with a character from Final Fantasy. Nice anime style though. Nature images seem to be getting some nice color schemes and themes from this. Very black mosquitoes. And architecture-related images too have a lot of black and pointy stuff in them. Cities look more like fantasy cities, I like it. But the stars come out in the final 3 themes. The portraits look awesome, fantasy images look awesome and sci-fi looks awesome. They are slightly anime, but mostly just the coloring and the fierce characters. From political cartoons to comedic sketches, caricatures can be a powerful tool for satire and humor. Caricature, meaning a representation of a person or thing that exaggerates or distorts certain features or characteristics, often for comedic effect. This is finally something that really does look like what the word actually means. I guess caricatures usually have signatures on them, so Midjourney does that as well. Nature images look quite hilarious as well. There is definitely a distinct style that comes with this word. I guess caricature is such a strong word that it really overpowers everything else. Interior is totally gone from these images. And the last themes also are really overpowered with the caricature word. Some of the images are looking quite strange, but there are some hints of fantasy and sci-fi somewhere in there. From relentless determination to unwavering loyalty, doggedness can be a powerful force for good. Dogged, meaning determined or persistent, often in the face of difficulty or opposition. And Midjourney just sees the word dog in there, I guess. In nature images we also see some dogs enjoying some landscapes, some wolves and close-ups of dog eyes. I guess the dogs are so strong here that we see dogs in nearly all images. Just in various locations. And of course the portraits are also of dogs. For sci-fi we have space dogs. And for fantasy we have quite nice scary fantasy dogs. From silly antics to playful pranks, buffoonery can be a powerful force for laughter and joy. Buffoonery, meaning behavior or actions that are silly, ridiculous, or clownish, often intended to make people laugh. And we sure do get some clowns and silliness here. And in nature images also some buffaloes. I guess buffoon sounds quite similar to buffalo. The architecture seems to be quite silly as well. And city images are rather of silly sculptures in urban environments. The portraits look nice and silly mostly. Fantasy does some silly gnomes and mushroom head people. And sci-fi is a little bit more serious, but still somewhat strange. And that's that. These were 25 words that more or less changed the prompt when you do really short prompts. I have not tried them with longer prompts. In my next videos I probably will concentrate on some other topics. But at least I now recognize the default style of Midjourney 5 a lot more than before. I hope you find this experimentation useful. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like. I love all the comments that I get, even the more critical ones, as all of them help me to improve my videos going forward. If you want to see the improvements and experiments, stick around and subscribe. Otherwise, let's continue prompting.